Hello, my little potatoes. This whole quarantine business has given me a lot of free time, especially some time to play through some games that have been chilling on my backlog. And one of those games was the absolutely awe-inspiring aquatic adventure Abzu, and I ultimately have some things to say about it. It's like a 2 to 3 hour game, so if you're worried about spoilers, which there will be in this video, you can go ahead and go play it and come back. No big deal. But if you're still here, sit down, grab a snack, and some water too, stay hydrated. And let's have a chat about Abzu. I figured I'd open up talking about Abzu's visuals because they're really what's supposed to sell you on the game, and I'm kind of mixed about it. On the one hand, you have this absolutely beautiful cel-shaded art style, and these gorgeous landscapes, and sea creatures that all fuse together to create some of the most stunning moments of cinematography that left me speechless. But on the other hand, I spent half my time with this game with an incurable headache because of the lighting. Seriously, every time it got even a little bright in an area, my eyes began to sting. And while I think this is intentional, as from a game design standpoint, you're supposed to go deeper and deeper with each segment, which kind of leads you to associate light with the vibrant surface and darkness with the sinister depths, but it really didn't need to be so bright. The only time the lighting didn't give me a headache was during the final sequence. But as previously stated, when the light doesn't burn through my retinas, this game is absolutely gorgeous, and another example of a game that chose style over realism, and this choice is what leads to this game having such a relaxing atmosphere provided by visuals alone. Saying Abzu has gameplay would be a little bit of a stretch. I'm honestly oddly surprised at how I'm feeling. Games like Breath of the Wild have an emphasis on just moving around and exploring, and so does Abzu, and I love those games, but I think the main issue here for me is that there's no variation in the gameplay until the last 5 minutes or so. Now, basically you have two main segments of gameplay: swimming around, exploring, and solving puzzles, and an on-rails section, which is surprisingly fun despite you not really needing to do anything. While exploring, you'll be on the lookout for three main things: solution to the game's puzzles, more on that later, these little nautilus shells that I had no idea what they did, and meditation points. Now, because I'm a big old environmental nerd, I love these meditation points. You sit down and are no longer in control of a character. You simply watch fish swim. The only control you have is alternating between different fish, which does not control well. Alternating to different species is clunky. However, it is really relaxing to watch them swim in these beautifully crafted environments. You can even watch them interact with each other, as some fish will eat other fish. While swimming, you can even latch onto fish and have them carry you around. It's honestly beautiful. As for the shells, I had to look up the purpose they serve. As it turns out, it's just unlocking an alternate costume. Okay, at least they aren't gatekeeping content. And when I mention puzzles, I use that term very lightly. You see, all you do is something like swim over here and press spacebar, then swim over here and press spacebar. There's zero variety to the puzzles, they all feel the same. The closest they get to shaking it up is towards the end when they add hazards that don't really do much aside from slowing down your progress. Like, there's no penalty for getting hit by these hazards, it just kind of wastes your time. But while we're on the topic of swimming, let's talk about how this game controls. I cannot begin to describe to you how awkward this game feels on mouse and keyboard. Unlike most games where you can just kind of press forward and then use the camera stick to guide where you're going, Abzu says no, press my buttons. Your camera is practically useless unless you're trying to look at that absolutely gorgeous scenery. Oh my god, it's so pretty. This game is so pretty. And the camera also feels really clunky, by the way. It's slow and unresponsive, and I guess that's kind of to help you look at more of the environment, but it doesn't feel right. As for this game's other section, the on-rails stuff, it's exactly as it sounds, you're on rails. You swim through a big current with the only real gameplay being moving around to swim through schools of fish, which just seems rude, quite frankly. There's also no incentive to do so from what I can tell, but before I move on to when the gameplay actually changes up, I do want to take a moment to praise the game. Despite the awkward and clunky controls and the lack of variety, I don't think that was just the developers being lazy or being bad at what they do. It simply has to do with the intent. While the game isn't super engaging from a gameplay standpoint, it is incredibly relaxing. I want to reiterate the point that while I do have my criticisms with this game, I by no means think it's terrible. Now, for the last 5 minutes of this game, the gameplay decides to go absolutely bizarro mode. You swim very, very fast and ram into evil technology. I'll explain that in a second. It's oddly visceral for this game, but it feels fun and looks really pretty while you do it. This is one of those games with heavy lore and light story. The story goes that you're a swimmer who swims into these really pretty ethereal temples to commune with the fish god. After communicating with all four, you have to go down to the depths of the sea to find a field of broken down technology. It's having a severe effect on the ecosystem, and so this big shark tries to kill the mother brain thing. Shark screws up while you're inside the big robo lab, and the lab blows up. The swimmer then discovers that they are in fact actually a robot made by whoever made the weird pyramids hurting the ocean. The shark dies and its spirit floats away. Then you go through these ancient temple ruins until you gain the blessing of the shark and go blow stuff up. Then the sea returns to normal. Lore-wise, what I was able to interpret was that this ancient civilization met up with these fish gods and our shark friend. The gods blessed them with a strange spirit orb looking thing, and this civilization flourished underwater, till they eventually turned against the god by making these machines with the power of the orb, which then messes everything up, and they die off, except for you, who they gave the spirit orb to. I really enjoyed being able to piece the lore together on my own, even if I may have misinterpreted some things. As for the storyline in itself, I do find it to be quite enjoyable, as our silent main character goes through a character arc. 0 words involved, all left up to the player to watch. Our swimmer overcomes their feelings of remorse for being unable to help the ocean gods, and ultimately is blessed by them to help them restore things as they were. It's a really beautiful story for a game as visually stunning as this. I don't have a lot to say about the music, as there aren't any tracks in particular that stood out to me, but I remember them all being beautiful and working well with the environment and ambiance to really immerse me. So, good job to Austin Wintry. Shouts out. I really appreciate your music. I've spent a lot of my time in quarantine debating about how I feel about this game. On the one hand, I think it's a really beautiful story told in a beautiful way through its lackluster gameplay and gorgeous environmental design. I think I'm pretty split down the middle here. I don't absolutely love this game, but I don't really dislike it either. It's a very relaxing game to play, and I think it works well as a spectator game or a game to start someone who hasn't really played games before. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know it was very short, and so I think that's why I'm gonna call it Let's Have a Quick Chat. And I can kind of save it for these shorter games like this, games that don't take a lot of time to do. But if you enjoyed it, you could always leave a like, or if you didn't, leave a dislike, tell me what I can do to improve. I encourage you to start a discussion of this in the comments, Jesus Christ, as that's kind of the goal with these videos. But as always, please keep it civil, make sure to drink your water and get a good amount of sleep. I'm gonna go play Animal Crossing with the boys. Have yourselves a damn good one.